Hello, everyone. Welcome to tonight's meeting on negotiable instruments. I'm Kent from Stark Financial Group. This is one of the free um, meetings for everybody. This one here is very quick. It's not a very long book. I won't have a whole lot of information to cover, but then you guys will have plenty of chances to ask questions when I'm done. Um, so I'll just get into it. Um, so, uh, this ebook is put out by Stark Financial Group, which is the company that I created to help people guide themselves through this movement and understand a little bit more about the things that are in front of them and how to deal with them. Um, This booklet is for educational purpose. You agree to indemnify and hold harmless Stark Financial Groups, its offers, directors, employees, and agents of any claims, damages, losses, or liabilities that may arise from this agreement. Just as anything is important to read the IRM and instructions for each of these forms in the handbook. After all, information is power. This one is Stark Financial Group's negotiable instruments on promissory notes, orders, and drafts. So the first thing we're going to talk about, the UCC is basically where most of this information comes from. Um, this one here is 3-104 negotiable instruments. Except as provided in subsections C and D, negotiable instrument means an unconditional promise or order to pay a fixed amount of money with or without interest or other charges described in the promise or order. One, payable to the bearer or order at the time it is issued or first comes into possession of the holder. Two, is payable on demand or at a definite time. Three, does not state any other undertaking or instruction by the person promising or ordering payment to do any act in addition to the payment of money, but to promise or order may contain an undertaking or power to give, maintain, or collect collateral to secure payment. Two, or II is an authorization of power of the holder to confess judgment or realize the disposition of collateral, and III is a waiver or a benefit of any law intended for the advantage protection of the obligor. Um, so, in these negotiable instruments, they are a contract so that you can establish like how you're to be treated, just like a bank will establish that when they take a negotiable instrument. Instrument means negotiable instrument in order that meets all of the requirements of subsection A, except paragraph 1, and otherwise falls into the definition of check, or subsection F is negotiable instrument and a check. D, a promise or order other than a check is not an instrument if, at the time is issued or first comes into possession of the holder, it contains conspicuous statement, however expressed, to the effect that the promise or order is not negotiable or not an instrument given by this article. So this is very important, is that you have to understand this, is that what gives fiat currency, which is an order, it's a bond, what gives fiat currency the ability to have value, because there's the money that we use, what we call money, has no value, right? So how does it have value? And that's that it's negotiable, right? A, something that is negotiable has value because it can pass from one person to the next. Okay. So a non-negotiable, like a non-negotiable bond, doesn't have value, right? It has value to the person that wrote it and the person that receives it, but it's not valuable as in you can't transfer it as currency, right? So in order for it to be a negotiable instrument, it has to be negotiable, right? And so that would mean that anybody that put their hands on that would have to be able to convert that into some
Current.
sort of financial instrument, right? Um, E, an instrument is a note. If it isn't a promise, then it is a draft. if it is an order. If an instrument falls into the definition of both note and a draft, a person entitled to enforce the instrument may treat it as either. F, check means a draft, other than the documentary draft, payment on demand and drawn at a bank, cashier's check, teller's check. An instrument may be a check, even though it's described on its face by any other term, such as money order. Understand this, that it is what it is. It isn't what it says. Okay. There are only two kinds of negotiable instruments. There are orders and there are drafts. Okay. And I'm going to go over all this stuff, but just understand that no matter how you look at it, there's only two, right? Orders and drafts. So a example of an order is a $1 bill. An example of a draft is a check that you write from your bank. Okay. Cashier's check means a draft with respect that the drawer and the drawee are the same at the same bank or branches at the same bank or branches of the same bank. Teller check means drawn by the bank on another bank or payable through a bank, right? Traveler's check is an instrument that is payable on demand and is drawn to payable through the bank. It is designed to the term a traveler's check or by a substantially similar term requires as a condition of payment a countersignature by a person whose specimen signature appears on the instrument. Another version of a traveler's check would be a fully authenticated birth certificate. It says for full faith and credit, if you're in another country, you can take that to the American embassy and use it. Okay. Certificate of deposit means that the instrument containing an acknowledgement by a bank that the sum of money has been received by the bank and the promise by the bank to pay repay the sum of money. A certificate of deposit is a note of the bank. Okay. So those are CDs. You can put $1,000 in a CD and then they'll pay you interest on it. Okay. Um, there are only two types of instruments, orders and drafts. All instruments fall into one of these two categories. Promissory notes. A P note is an order, an unconditional promise to pay a, a certain amount of money to a named party or a holder of the note, or a deposit that money as such persons direct. A promissory note must be in writing and signed by the maker of the promises. Okay. Creating a promissory note. There are many examples of promissory notes. Banks create them, insurance companies use them. You can create one. Okay. So this one is a bonded promissory note. This is an example of what we would do to create money with the IRS for our own use. Okay, so this one here, if you want to use one like this, just take the border off, make it your own border, use your own paper, change the font and whatever. Maybe even put like your initials on it somewhere, but just make it your own. But this is an example of a bonded promissory note. Okay, negotiable versus non-negotiable. This is crucial part of the creation of orders to comprehend if the instrument is not negotiable or not. Only a negotiable instrument has value. Okay, bond. This is a non-negotiable bond. Okay, this is something that you would create for set off. You cannot give this to somebody else and they use it. This is only used between you and the person you're sending it to. Um, Here is another example of a private registered bond. This one's non-negotiable. This one is one that we used to use. So, you can have a copy of this, but this is a non-negotiable bond.
Hey, Kent, quick.
So court orders are also orders and are negotiable. After a court case, you can accept the order for value and file a claim 1040 or 1041 and and use the case number as a resulting trust, estate, and claim the value of the order. Now, when you do this, you're not going to get money back, right? But you're going to be able to close out the court case and they won't be able to extort any more money out of it. So, like, for example, when you get done with a court case, if you don't do this in 3 years, they're going to take the bonds for the full value as abandoned property. This is an example of a court order, right? This is just basically where a court ordered something. So this has value, okay? And this is something that you would accept for value and be able to use it for certain instances. Draft is a check, okay? Here's a bill of exchange. This one here is just basically explaining what this is. This is negotiable, right? Um, and so whoever, that this is given to is will be able to use it for value. This bill of exchange is to exchange, okay, or to um, convert from credits to bank credits or Federal Reserve notes or whoever you're sending it to. These are drafts that I use. These are, 3 to a page. These parts here, you gotta know, like, the account. This would be your routing number, which is your social security number. This would be the bond number, right? And so this would be coming from one account to the other, right? So in this one here, it would be actually it'd be backwards. The bond number would be on the left, the social security number would be on the right. And so these are examples of drafts, and then you just put um, payable on presentment 809 request. So this is negotiable. Okay. So here's a few things to kind of end this up. 3401 signature. A person is not liable on an instrument unless the person signed the instrument or that the person representing an agent of the representative who signed the instrument and the signature is binding of the represented person under section 3402. A signature may be made manually or by means of a device or machine online, and be use of any name, including a trade assumed name by a word, a mark, or a symbol. So you can put an X or you can put a check mark or anything, and that constitutes a signature. 3204 is endorsement means a signature other than that of the signer, maker, drawer, acceptor, that alone or accompanied by the other words is made as an instrument for the purpose of negotiating the instrument, restricting the payment of the instrument or incurring endorser's liability of the instrument, regardless of the intent of the signer. A signature and its accompanying words is an endorsement unless the accompanying words and terms of the instrument place the signature, the other circumstance unambiguously indicate that the signature was made for the purpose other than the endorsement. For the purpose of determining whether a signature is made on an instrument, a paper affixed to the instrument is a part of the instrument. Endorser means the person who makes an endorsement. For the purpose of determining whether transfers of an instrument is a holder, an endorsement that transfers a security interest in the instrument is effective as an unqualified endorsement of the instrument. If the instrument is payable to a holder under the name that is not the name of the holder, the endorsement may be made by the holder of the name stated in the instrument or by the holder's name or both. But the signature in both names may be required by a person paying and taking the instrument for the value in the collection. So I'm going to show you this in a little bit here, but when you like endorse the back of a check, right, one that's written out to you, that's how it becomes negotiable, right? And so, the words that follow the endorsement will make a difference, right? And so I'll show you one when we're done here. And this one is very important for you to understand these. Okay, 3603. B is the one I use almost all the time. Okay, we'll just go through all three of them. If a tender of payment of an obligation is made, an instrument is to be made to the person entitled to enforce the instrument. The effect of the tender is governed by principles of law to tender of payment under the simple contract. If if a tender of payment of an obligation to pay an instrument is made a person entitled to enforce the instrument and the tender is refused, then there is discharge to the extent of the amount of the tender, okay, of the obligation of the endorser or accommodation. So sometimes they'll try and say, oh, tender is money. So legal tender is anything of value. So you can take a box of chickens and they have to at least discharge the amount of the box of chickens if they refuse it. C, if a tender of payment of an amount due the instrument is made and a person entitled to enforce the instrument, the obligation of the obligor to pay the interest after the due date on the amount tendered is discharged. If presentment is required with respect to an instrument, the obligor is able to, and ready to pay due on the due date at every place the payment stated on the instrument. The obligor is deemed to have made tender of payment on the due date to the person entitled to enforce the instrument. So if you pay the interest, then it's basically saying that it was paid, basically the interest is what gives you the grace period. So if you pay the interest, it was considered paid on the due date. So these are very interesting. These are very important when you are, when you are using negotiable instruments like to pay something, um, because um, they can't refuse it because there's no money, right? Once you have absorbed this information, it's important to know where and how to use each instrument. It is advisable that you have an individual Baker EN to work most of these to remove liability for yourself. So here's, some more information on me. And then I'm going to, there's one more thing I wanted to show you. Um, Something that I was working on today. All right, so this is when they say presentment, this is what they mean when they say presentment. Okay. So this one here, acceptance for value, exempt from levy, pay the order of the U.S. Treasury and charge the same to Kent Nicholas Stark Estate, given for the patent right. Okay, that's my registered mail number. Um, Done in good faith, my social security number, authorized signature for redemption, right? So that's a presentment. That's what you would put on the front of an instrument that you're going to pay. Okay. And then the this is this is what goes on the back. So this would go on the top. So like if you do a buyer's order for a car, or if you're doing basically anything that you need to endorse. So like, this is what you would put at the top on the back of like a judge's order or something like that. Pay the order of the U.S. Treasury for credit to, there's two credit twos on here twice.
Fix that semicolon to by semicolon, make it a colon.
Okay. Um, Stark Holdings Business Trust, and then you put the EIN of the organization that's being paid, and then it would go by, and then it's your exemption account, right? So this is an example. This is an endorsement. You can some people say, oh, you have to handwrite it or whatever. But the point is that this is basically the endorsement that goes on the back, and the other thing is what you would, put on the front. Some people handwrite all this stuff. Um, when I'm doing, like classes and stuff, I just want it more readable because my handwriting isn't readable. So, um, that is, let me just look here. So, when you're doing an endorsement, you don't want to like, first of all, what I've learned, most recently is that you don't want to use the UCC codes when you sign anything. Okay. The thing is that most of the way that we in this movement sign our signature is we're trying to establish that we're the surety for the all caps name, that we're not the same entity. So as soon as you put UCC 1-308, you're pulling your signature into jurisdiction. So you don't want to use the UCC numbers on that. Um, when you're signing, for certain things, most of the stuff what you want to sign is as the beneficiary. If you can at all get away with any document, any contract, anything, you want to sign as the beneficiary because it qualifies and limits your signature. Um, Sometimes I will, like when I'm writing letters and stuff like that, I'll say without recourse, or all rights reserved without recourse, because I'm not signing a letter so that somebody can monetize my signature. Okay. But like when you're signing a mortgage, right, there's not any version of your signature that's going to get you out of a mortgage. So if you're signing a mortgage, you just sign it normally and then you use the redemption account to pay the mortgage so that you aren't paying that mortgage. Okay. So most of the times when you do stuff, what they got tricked us into believing is that when we make a payment, we're only making one payment, but there's actually two payments being made. Okay. So that's that's something that it's yeah, Vincent, the driver's license, if you can sign it beneficiary, you want to, because that pulls you out of their jurisdictional contract. But a lot of them make you sign it. They do the computer thing, so you can't do that, right? So um those are just some things, but I'll open this up for questions. Go ahead, Robert, you had started with a question.
Well, I've got two questions actually. So the first one is what article deals with non-negotiable instruments in the UCC?
um Hold on, I'll look it up.
Because I know chapter three very well. And when you were talking about 3603, I quoted the state law version of that today in state court, 355.3-603. So I'm curious as to know about the non-negotiable because the non-negotiable only holds value to the bearer.
Yep.
And so can they redeem that for value?
The bearer can.
Yes, but it cannot be transferred to anyone else.
Well, so like a check, right? If you write a check to somebody, right, and they can endorse the back and
Hmm.
make it negotiable, right? So, um, like you know, that's kind of, when you get into endorsements, like that's what that's talking about, is that's where it goes from non-negotiable to negotiable. But a dollar bill is negotiable to anybody that holds it.
Hmm.
So that's where the value comes in, and it's not that the instrument doesn't have value, that it's non-negotiable. It just doesn't have negotiable value. In other words, like you can't you can't go use a non-negotiable instrument to pay for a load of wood,
Hmm.
right? But you could use a negotiable. That's why you can use money, or you could use in order for it to have what they call cash equivalent value, right? It would have to be something that anybody could take and trade or barter with, right? So like gold, right? No matter what version of gold or silver, you could take that somewhere somehow and negotiate something, right? Where a non-negotiable one, in theory, you can't do that. Um, so that's kind of my take on it.
I got you. I got you. And then my second question was, so you have on a draft, you have your social on one side, and when you talked about like bond number, are we referring to court case number? Are we referring to
No, the
the
bond number, when you're talking about like bonded promissory notes and stuff like that, that's the number on the back of your Social Security card.
okay, perfect. This one.
Yep. So that's the bond number, right? And so when you're doing um, here, let me bring one up for you. Do this.
And I hope I'm asking good questions for everyone. Just saying.
Yeah, you're good. All right, here we go. All right, so when you do your bonded promissory note, this one is one that I use, right? Um, so this is where your bond number goes, is in there, right? And then you would, so this one here was a check that I transferred to my banker account.
So it looks like you're using your EIN number,
Well, this one is because
your social.
I'm moving money from the Social Security account to my banker account. So this one here is that.
Okay.
Okay, but if you're doing one, um, so this is where I was, yeah, paying for a house. So this one here is just, um, there's no numbers or anything on it, right? Because it's coming from my redemption account and going to, um, the business trust, right? And so then and then you're also using like negotiable instruments here. You know, here's the miscellaneous that moved the money, and then here's the barter where I sent the treasury money and so on. So anyway, that's kind of what that means by the bond number.
No, I get it. So it really just depends on what you're using it for the most.
Right. So like a court case, you would use the case number. That's the bond number.
Like mine's weird because it has like letters in the middle of it.
Yeah. It doesn't matter what digits it has.
I got you. Because the account number is your social and it's just routed through your social. That's why you're using the routing number as the case number or whatever.
Yeah.
Don't let me be the only one that speaks. Come on, Vincent. I know you have some questions, bro. Nobody?
Yeah. Has anybody else got anything right now?
So let me ask you this then. What is the top three things that people get wrong in this process or learning about negotiable instruments in general?
Um, well, the main thing is this is that like you have to have a source, right? Like a lot of people just like start writing bills of exchange or 1099s, right? You got to establish where the money is. So first of all, you used to be able to take a bill of exchange to the bank and get money, right? But then what happened was like people didn't have the money allocated for the bill of exchange. So basically, if you take a bill of exchange to a bank and you don't have the money in the right spot, you basically bounced a check. So the most important thing about this is that you have to create the money first. So that's a bond or an order. And once you create the money, then you can use the 1099 forms and the bill of exchange. Um, I'm going to put in the files for you guys. I'm going to put some books on bills of exchange so you can see the different kinds and see the ways, to use them. And yeah, so I mean, basically, that's what you have to do is you have to create the money or you have to use a court case order, right, to establish, the money or whatever. Like I just bonded um a case I was doing, and I'll show you a court case bond that I did. Um, where's that one at? May have put it away already. So here's one I just did for a case. This is the bond. And this one is basically for my name change thing so that they don't um, try and turn me down for what I'm trying to do because of indemnification. So this bond is to initiate, regarding this case. This petitioner in consideration as no lawful money exists in circulation hereby underwrites the private exemption number and any and all obligations, performance, loss, costs sustained by the United States of America, the state of Georgia, or Morgan County, and constitutionally defined under the American national citizens regarding this matter. So this is basically a cover thing for the bond that I created for this case. Okay. So essentially what's happening is that um I don't because there's no money in circulation, right? I don't want to be put on the hook for anything associated with the court case. So then I created a bond and I put it on the record for the case. So if there's any type of indemnification or if there's anything that comes back on people, or people come back on the name and say, "Oh, I have a claim," the bond covers that claim. So, this is how you can use this to your advantage, where you're using it to drive an insurance policy or something like that. So, that's something that I just started doing. I've done GSA bonds before on different cases, and sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. It depends on how much of a crook your court is, right? But
I can speak to
social
that.
incident.
Fucking crooks, man, bro.
Yeah,
Straight up,
yeah,
straight up. Like it's crazy to say the very least. I won't get into that, but
yeah. All right. Does
oh,
anybody else have anything else? All right, sounds good. I told you guys this one wasn't going to be very long. It was really quick, but I wanted to give you guys something to chew on and some laws to read over and kind of start to understand this stuff. It is so important that you learn what these things are and what they do, okay? And to not rely on somebody else. So, thank you everybody. I hope you all have a good night.
peace.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.